Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be reviewing this article from Inside Higher Education on the University of Washington faculty search, which weighed race inappropriately. And so just as some background, I was an academic. I have a doctorate, I have 2 masters, I have a bachelor's, I have like 4 or 5 different associate's degrees. I've spent a lot of time in academia. I was a professor. I had my own master's program. I was a program director for. And so I know about higher education, and they absolutely consider things like race and gender, and they get sued for it quite frequently, and they still do it. This is not only private institutions, but also public institutions, which gets taxpayer money, that are discriminating against people because they're male, because they're white, because they're Christian, because they're straight. They do this all the time. And people are starting to wake up to it, but let's see what this article has to say on the topic. Okay, so there was an inappropriate use of race in hiring this week. The hiring process for a University of Washington psychology professor position titled Diversity and Development initially ranked a white person number 1 out of 84 applicants, the university says in a report released this week. Okay, so I was in a psychology department. My degree, my background is industrial and organizational psychology. We typically work in psychology and business departments. And so I know they're highly discriminatory departments. I remember one person, he was a straight white Christian male who worked in the psychology department at a public institution, and he was essentially forced out of his position because they didn't want any males in the department as tenured faculty members. And so despite being a tenured faculty member, he was forced out of the department, and he sued them over it. He won many lawsuits, and he was actually working in another department, which I'm not going to get into because I don't want to get into too much detail about his case, but he kept finding things that they were discriminating on because they never stopped discriminating. They removed all the male faculty from their department, and other departments within the university were also discriminating as well. And eventually they gave him $1 million just to leave the school. So that's how bad things are. And this was a public institution. They're still acting like this to this day, from what I understand. So this happens very frequently. Okay, so the article goes on to say, but psychology department faculty members then pressured one another until a third-ranked finalist, who was black, was given this tenure-track assistant professor job above the white and Asian finalists, the document states. It adds that it's unclear how candidates' racial identities were assigned. The assistant professor accepted the job in April of this year. The investigation, which the university posted online, concludes that race was used as a substantial factor in the selection of the final candidate in the hiring process that absolutely occurs very frequently, violating a university executive order that bans considering race in hiring. Okay, so let's see. The university announced on its website that the psychology department is now barred from conducting searches for tenure and tenure-track faculty positions for at least 2 years, subject to review by the provost's office. Also said the department will undergo a comprehensive review and revision of its hiring processes, and all the department members will receive training on how to conduct searches consistent with law and policy. That's not going to work because the administrators believe the exact same thing. They're also as discriminatory too, based on race. At least that's from my own perspective on what I've seen of administrators, faculty members at various colleges. Okay, let's see. I advise deleting a statement below as it shows that URM underrepresented minority applications were singled out and evaluated differently than non-URM applications, which is not allowed as blank noted. One email read according to the report. Oh, at a faculty meeting, someone whose name is redacted informed faculty that the hiring committee had 3 outstanding candidates, and so they used DEI to distinguish and select the first offer. The report says, citing an audio recording. The report says no definition of DEI was heard, but other documents indicate the working definition is operationalized as focusing on increasing hiring of underrepresented minority candidates. In the audio, a faculty member questions how the decision complies with the 1998 referendum, and faculty members were then told nothing illegal occurred. The report says, okay, so someone apparently was recording this, and it's... I don't know why. I mean, I'm very clearly a straight white male, and if you know anything about me, you also know I'm Christian as well. And so, like, they would allow me in these meetings where they would talk about discriminating like this. I don't know why they would allow it. I think it's because it's become so pervasive that if they just don't care at this point because they think they've won completely. And I was the type that I would just kind of like shrug and like I'm like, okay, well, this is illegal, but I mean, if you want to do it, you do it. There were a few times where I actually did try to report them, and it just never worked because the people in charge who you report to also believe these things. And so, yeah, this is what happens in American academia. If you have not gone to higher education, or if you haven't gone to higher education in a few decades, you'll be shocked by how things have changed, because this is the new norm across higher education. Okay, so before finalists were narrowed to 3, the article says 5 finalists were invited to virtual visits, with the schedules including meetings with the women faculty and faculty of color groups, but a member of the latter group expressed opposition to meeting the white candidates. Okay, so they're not even willing to meet with white people. We're just going full-blown segregation now, apparently. As a person who has been on both sides of the table for these meetings, I really appreciate them. The unnamed person wrote an email, but when the candidate is white, it is just awkward. The last meeting was uncomfortable. I would go as far as burdensome for me. Can we change the policy to not do these going forward with white faculty? So they're completely discriminating against them. An unnamed person wrote in another email in March that they were inclined to hold the meetings just for faculty candidates of color. I'm also mindful that our provost is now getting anxious about anything that's directed to only some identity groups. They're getting worried about fallout from the pending Supreme Court affirmative action rulings. This person wrote an email. My reading is that they'll get fearful of litigation over correcting to color blindness. So being colorblind and just seeing people for who they are instead of the color of their skin, that's wrong in modern days. And I know this because they've talked about it in many different graduate programs I've been a part of, many different departments I've been a part of. They do not like color blindness. They think you should take race into account. Maybe our committee can preemptively think our way around this type of future directive. So they're trying to circumvent the law here. They're outright admitting it. So they promote that they've hired 5 faculty of color to the tenure track during the 2020-21 academic year. 1 joined with tenure, 3 with endowed term professorships generated by department advancement efforts. So they encourage this across the university. Okay, university announced the case study will no longer be used in the hiring process. So talking about racial diversity for their case study. Okay, let's see what else they have to say here. Okay, so there was a whistleblower who brought this issue to the university's attention before John Saylor's public records request, and there is an email dated April 3rd back to the whistleblower confirming awareness of the situation. There were conversations over the next several weeks regarding the most appropriate way to proceed. The UW is committed to doing what is right and was responding based on the initial whistleblower's information and concern, not based on inquiries or interest from external advocacy groups. Okay, university still hasn't given the National Association of Scholars the document requested. Balter wrote that this request was quite comprehensive. Saylor said Thursday that he thinks racial preferences cause people to prioritize things that are other than what these roles were required for, and I think it's a bad move while institutions try to hire on the basis of race. Okay, so yeah, they clearly discriminate against. This is clearly happening across all of higher education, and I want to show you just what the comment section of this is like on the R Professor subreddit. Okay, let's see what they say. So they violated state and university policy, federal laws. Feel bad for the professors who were kicked out. Okay, so here's one. Had a vice president at my institution tell a dean candidate at a public forum they didn't get the job because they were a white female. And according to the search committee, she was the best candidate. So this happens very frequently. They're even overt about it, like I said before, which is they think that they have everyone on their side in positions of power, and so they don't have to follow the laws anymore, or they don't think they have to follow the laws. Even if they win, or even if they lose lawsuits and lose a ton of money for their university, they still continue doing it. There's no repercussions for their actions because these institutions, they're too big to fail, and so they lose money, and then they just figure out other money sources, or they take money from their endowment or whatever, but they never change their actions. They're always discriminatory against, well, I shouldn't say always, but they're very frequently discriminatory against straight white Christian male. And the more of those category boxes you fulfill, the more discriminated against you're going to be in higher education. And I've tried to tell this to baby boomers, and they just do not understand that that's what it's institutionalized. This discrimination is institutionalized throughout higher education and frequently now throughout other types of institutions, other organizations, because academia is where you train people for other types of organizations. And so everything is downstream of academia. And so academia, if they're acting like this and they're filtering people like this, it's going to happen eventually because that's how they're training people to be discriminating, to be racist and things like that. Okay, so next person on Reddit says this exact thing happened in all 6 of the searches I was a part of in Canada, so it's happening in other countries. Make of that what you will. Okay. After this article, shouldn't it be incredibly obvious who was hired on the basis of race? That University of Washington Psychology Department recent hire. Yeah, you can look up who it was, I guess. All right. Okay, so here these are the last 2 comments we'll go over. We do it all in more subtle ways. If we're evaluating 2 stellar candidates, people who like the black candidate will not pick the white candidate and exaggerate the black candidate's qualifications. Sometimes the things they highlight about the black candidate are not supposed to be considered, but they conveniently forget that. But if I try to highlight something noteworthy of the white candidate, I immediately shut down because policy forbids us from talking about that. White women are particularly guilty of this. I'm a professor of color, by the way. So they're saying that white women are extremely discriminatory against other white women and against white men. And the final comment, I was told in private by a member of a search committee after the fact that I did not receive an offer because I didn't have certain identity markers. Luckily, a better opportunity came along. But this is absolutely pervasive right now and has been since Trump was elected, indeed, in a reaction to Trump's election. And I can tell you this happened before Trump's election as well. It's been going on for, when was I think it was about 2010-ish, I think, was when I started to hear about it. Actually, really after the last recession. The 2008 type of recession was when I started to hear about these things happening across academic institutions. So yeah, really weird. I don't know why it happened during that time. But anyways, that's our video today. I did want to bring some attention to what's going on in academia because that affects the entire nation as a whole and entire Western civilization because it's all going down this same pathway. If you found this to be helpful, informative, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble for more content. Please tell people about our videos. We are trying to get out there. We are being suppressed in the algorithm. I've talked about this in a number of videos, but we used to have 4-digit view count and we were rising very rapidly. And then I increased production quality and I improved as a speaker on video, and our view count went down to single digit and double digit. And it's very obvious we're being suppressed in the algorithm because you can see like impression click-through rates and view durations, and ours are still very high, but they're just not pushing our videos in the algorithm whatsoever anymore. It's mainly word of mouth. So you guys telling other people about our videos is what get people to see our videos. And so please do tell people about our videos if you think they might be interested in them. Please leave a comment in the comment box below if you have any questions, concerns, critiques. I do read all of them and I respond when necessary. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.